1.Borobudur book is not a temple. Part 1. Santo Saba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on subjective academic studies and studies, this needs to be re-examined by experts in their fields. In an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÉSIARYÄ. By Saint Saba. Exploration and Research. Complete info. Waatsap to +62813 2132 9787. Suleiman and Saba are the two highest civilizations that have ever existed on Earth. The Suleiman or Solomon civilization and the Saba civilization with its queen named Bilqis, two figures who were presented by SWT to be a lesson to all people, namely the Golden Age and the glory that was achieved by a creature named human. The Saba civilization empire represented by Bilqis and achieved the highest progress on Earth, whose level of thought progressed beyond the civilizations that existed before and after its time, because of its selfishness and excessive attainment to the world, forgot to even admit that there is another eternal life, namely the land hereafter. In the era of the Saba civilization before the encounter with Solomon, it had not been touched by guidance givers based in the revealed religion, but it is possible that at that time the prophets were not listed in the 25 prophets, and the prophet, after meeting Solomon, the Saba civilization was defeated and acknowledged the hereafter. The true story of Saba serves as a reminder to humans that a great civilization will be destroyed if it does not adhere to the essential teachings, the teachings that were sent down by the Almighty. In this case, we who have passed during the life of Solomon and Saba, must admit that there is a teaching that completes the last and saves. The perfect teaching that has revealed about the two great figures of Solomon and Saba and the essence of the incident, because to this day there are still a group of people who are still arguing about the truth of Solomon's teachings. The perfect and saving teachings will apply to the age after Solomon to the end of time. The teachings that tell the story of Saba and Solomon explain the truth of the preceding teachings from the time of pre-Adam to the age of Isa al-Masih's return and the arrival of al-Mahdi at the end of the world. Follow these teachings, must obey the rules, be emulated by the ways of life in the world, then we are safe as humans and their civilizations. The characteristics of these teachings are those that recognize the existence of the land of the hereafter. There is retribution from doing good and evil, who establish prayers and pay zakat. Their belief in the afterlife wants to perfect their efforts for the causes of punishment, and this is the capital of all good and life in world. In the context of Solomon and Saba, what is meant by disbelief in the hereafter is the Sabaean people. Their busyness and perseverance in bad deeds occur repeatedly and continuously regardless of the variety of obedience and torture caused by them. They are adrift in a matter of confusion. Actions that are considered beautiful to them are all actions that are only based on the understanding and mindset of humans that existed at that time, namely worship of the sun and understanding of their deeds, who think there is no retribution for all their actions. The Sabaeans do not believe in a resurrection after death, do not believe in an afterlife and a judgment day and the vengeance of heaven and hell. Their actions do not believe in the existence of the only Almighty Allah and the day of resurrection after death, with their religious practices that collaborate with Jinn and Satan, which are done collectively, have been deemed true, plus the role of Satan who controls and makes these acts beautiful for the Sabaean people. Collaboration with Jinn, also with pre-Adam beings who were still left on the face of the earth at that time. What kind of beautiful deeds did the Sabas and demons did at that time will be explained later. The true nature of humanity has disappeared from them, so that the vanity they see is truth and truth they see is falsehood. Evil deeds appear beautiful to those who do them by the devil, while Allah praises good deeds. In fact, they are people who do not believe in the afterlife, that is, they do not justify resurrection after death. That was the understanding at the time of Saba. We make them look up to their bad deeds by making them imbued with instincts and favored by lust. So they are confused, and swayed. Because their busyness and perseverance in bad deeds occur repeatedly and continuously regardless of the various obstructions and torments that result. What happened during the Saba period occurred a disaster that repeated before the Suleiman period, and acknowledged the existence of Allah after showing Saba the ability and advantages that exceed what the Saba civilization had. And those in the hereafter are the ones who have the most to lose, that is, there is nothing more to lose than themselves and their assets among the humans who are in the Mahshar field in the future. They will become the people who will lose the most because they buy misguidance with guidance. So they don't reach heaven with all its pleasures. There is perfect guidance from the Most Wise and Knowing, namely from the side of Allah, the Most Wise, the Knowing, namely the Most Wise in His commands and prohibitions and the knowing all matters, both large and small. His messages are pure honesty and His law is justice for all mankind after the time of Solomon and Saba, while the book of Allah SWT in the time before the Quran is the book that was brought by Musa, as namely the Torah, and that which was brought by David, as Zabur, the book that was brought by the prophets was denied by all Bibles for those who are believed to be not from Allah. Of course there is something that is denied, there must be something that is considered better, therefore he rejects something that is considered not good. The wisdom of Allah SWT can be seen from the freedom of humans, in this case the Sabaean people, make and believe in His book so that they can prosper their people, to the extent that the human being goes beyond or exaggerates and gives time to correct what mistakes he has done, repent, admit his weakness in terms of this as about the book, so the Sabaean people must accept the book from Allah but the Sabaean people do not. The affirmation of Allah SWT about the Omniscient in this discussion is an affirmation of the excessive attitude for the Sabaeans who consider themselves to know a lot, what knowledge is for the Sabaean people so they feel better. The knowledge of the Sabaean people about the universe and the universe as such, in this case the role of the jinn and the role of non-human beings is quite large. Knowledge of the unseen is something that humans consider at that time not achieved by and because of the help and cooperation with the jinn, and the role of non-human beings is considered extraordinary. Knowledge of the earth and the creatures that can go in and out of it, the knowledge of the heavens about the creatures that descend and rise from the sky as well as the creatures that enter the earth, which for the Sabaean people is a high attainment for which knowledge may not exist in the book brought by the prophets, so that the Sabaeans insisted on rejecting it. About what knowledge the Sabaean people have and how to exaggerate it, will be explained later. Revealing the true story of Solomon will be more complete by knowing the true story of Moses. There are a number of things that must be known about Moses, namely, the teachings he brought, the land where he happened and the people that Moses saved. Prophet Musa as 1527–1408 BC. The story about the life of Moses and his struggle against the Israelites related to Prophet Solomon and Saba. Here the author will tell about Moses too. What is the connection with Solomon and Saba? Keep up with this explanation. Remember when Moses said to his family, "Behold, I saw fire. I will later bring to you the message thereof, or I will bring to you a torch of fire so that you may mourn." So when he came to the place of fire, he shouted, that the people who were near the fire were blessed, and those around it. And glory be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. In fact, this Quran explained to the Banu Israel most of the things they disputed about. Revealing about Solomon has a lot to do with the Israelites. The history of the children of Israel and the prophets is related to Moses. The place which is the location that witnesses the history of the children of Israel is Mount Thursina. The heyday of the children of Israel was in the time of Solomon, although in the end the children of Israel slandered Solomon as worshippers of Satan. In the article below, the writer will prove that slander is wrong. What is true is that Solomon controlled the jinn and employed him under Solomon's authority. Al-Quran as the final book of the prophets explains this clearly. Prophet Musa as born among the children of Israel who at that time was controlled by the king of Pharaoh who was cruel and wrongdoing. Prophet Musa bin Imran bin Kad bin Lawi bin Yaqub was Yuqabad's mother. After rising to adulthood, the Prophet Musa had become associated with the daughter of the Prophet Shu'aib, namely Shiphrah. The king of Pharaoh, who ruled Egypt around the birth of Prophet Musa, was an unjust, cruel and inhuman king. He ruled his country with violence, oppression and did something arbitrarily. "O Moses, throw your staff." So when Moses threw down his tonket, the stick became a snake and Moses saw it moving like a swift snake. It fled back and forth without looking. "O Moses, do not be afraid. Have no fear before me." The incident of Moses that happened to Moses was identical to Solomon. Moses was faced with Pharaoh man who had everything, both power and control over people who had abilities related to the power of the unseen, namely the power that collaborated with Satan or Jinn. Likewise Solomon faced rulers in civilizations who collaborated with demons or jinn who were more than real magic jobs. The ability to penetrate the sky was also the ability to penetrate the earth. Moving things instantly went faster than usual. After Moses, there is present David who has been bestowed extraordinary abilities in David's time to ruler in David's time. David inherited the ability and intelligence to Solomon who would conquer Saba. In Islam the prophet David received the Zabur book, while in Christianity David wrote many psalms which were collected in the Psalms. David is the ancestor of Jesus or Isa al-Masih according to the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Luke and other New Testament books. His lifespan is generally dated to 1049-70 BC, his rule over the kingdom of Judah in Hebron, 1010-1002 BC, and his rule over all Israel, 1002-970 BC. According to the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament records in the Christian Bible, David was born in Bethlehem, Ephrath, in the territory of Judah. His father was named Jesse. He is the youngest of Jesse's 8 sons. He has 2 sisters. He passed his teenage years as a shepherd of sheep. According to tradition the Book of Psalms, Zabur in Islam, is referred to as by David. Actually this book is a collection of 150 song poems, psalms, which contain various types of poetry in the form of prayers, hymns, lamentations, prayers of regret. Many of David's compositions are included, along with the Psalms of Moses, Asaph bin Berechiah and several other composers. One of David's most famous psalms is Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd." Prophet David 1010-970 B.C. Israel. David was a prophet and king of the children of Israel. Since he was young, he accompanied the children of Israel under the leadership of Talut against the Palestinian forces led by Jalut. David was the one who managed to kill Jalut, so he was praised as a war hero. After King Talut died, David succeeded him as king. God appointed David as his prophet and apostle. It was to him that the book of Zabur was revealed. He has a number of miracles, intelligence, understands the language of birds, and softens iron using only his bare hands, and David also has the most melodious voice of all human voices, just like Joseph who was given the most handsome face. After David killed the Jalut, he reached the pinnacle of truth among his people so that he became the most famous man among the children of Israel. He became the leader of the army and the husband of the king's daughter. But David was not very happy about all of this. He did not aim to achieve truth or position or honor, but he was trying to reach the love of Allah SWT. David had been given a voice which was very beautiful and wonderful. David thanked Allah SWT and glorified him with his voice which was appealing and awe-inspiring. Therefore, after defeating Jalut, Daud went into hiding. He went to the desert and mountains. He felt peace in the midst of other beings. In this way the temple of the Lord is finished. Then Solomon went to Ezion-Geber, and to Elath, which is by the sea, in the land of Edom. By means of his men Huram, king of Tyre, sent ships to him, and his men who knew about the sea. They went with Solomon's men to Ophir, and from there they took 450 talents of gold, which they brought to King Solomon. Moreover, the servants of Huram, and those of Solomon, who brought gold from Ophir, also brought sandalwood, and precious stones. The king worked the sandalwood as steps for the Lord's temple and the king's palace, and also for harps for the singers. Nothing like that had been seen before in the land of Judah. Prophet Suleiman, 975-935 BC, Baitul Maqdis Palestine Suleiman Arabic, Standard Hebrew. Slomo, Hebrew Tiberia. Slomo, meaning, peace, c. 975-935 BC, was a king of Israel, and son of King David. His name is mentioned 27 times in the Quran. Since childhood he has shown intelligence and sharpness of mind. He was appointed a prophet in 970 BC. Suleiman bin Daud bin Azia bin Awad from the descendants of Yahuza bin Yaqub. Allah SWT appointed him as a prophet and apostle. After Solomon was old enough and his father died, Solomon was appointed king in the kingdom of Israel. He has power not only over humans, but also over animals and spirits such as jinn and others. You can understand the language of all the animals. Solomon's palace is very beautiful. Built with the cooperation of humans, animals and genies. The walls are made of alabaster, the pillars and doors of gold and copper, the roof is silver, the ornaments and carvings are pearl and diamonds, the sand in the garden is sprinkled with pearls, and so on. Prophet Suleiman was bestowed by Allah with wisdom from adolescence. It also has various features, including being able to speak and understand the language of animals so that all creatures follow their will. And indeed we have given knowledge to David and Solomon, and both of them said, "Praise be to Allah who exceeds us from most of his servants who believe." And Solomon has inherited David, and he said, "O people, we have been given the understanding of the language of birds and we were given everything. Verily all this is really a real gift." Below the author describes the civilizations that existed in the pre-Christian era. The civilizations that existed at that time had meetings with high civilizations in the archipelago. We will meet this later at 1.Borobudur. Solomon has inherited David and has everything, namely, a great kingdom that never existed in the world before and after his time. The kingdom of Suleiman existed at the time, 975 to 935 BC. Let's look at civilizations around that time. Ancient Greece. Minoan civilization is the first Bronze Age civilization in Greece. This civilization appeared on the island of Crete and developed around 2700 BC to 1500 BC. The Mikken Civilization flourished across northern Crete from around 1600 BC, when the culture. The Mikken Civilization was dominated by a chivalrous aristocracy. Around 1400 BC, the Mycenaean people extended their reach of power to Crete, the center of the Minoan civilization, which at that time experienced the catastrophic eruption of Santorini. North Africa. Around 2500 BC, the kingdom of Kerma developed in the Nubian region between Sudan and Egypt. Kerma culture is an agricultural culture like Egypt. They developed agriculture, livestock, and became trading partners for Egypt. Around 1500 BC, the kingdom was annexed by the Egyptians and became part of the new kingdom of Egypt. In the 11th century BC, the Nubians founded the kingdom of Kush in southern Egypt, in the former territory of the kingdom of Kerma, which would last until the 4th century CE. America 2000 BC 500 AD, Mesoamerican regional kingdoms were founded around 2000 BC. There, the pre-Columbian peoples were. Arya was being formed, the notable ones being the Maya and the Aztecs. As the Olmec culture slowly receded, the great Mayan city-state gradually expanded in number and prominence, and Maya culture spread along the Yucatan Peninsula and the surrounding area. The Aztec Empire in later times was built by neighboring cultures and was influenced by conquered tribes such as the Toltecs. East Asia. Great Wall of China north of Beijing. The wall is a form of defense for Chinese civilization in response to the threat of nomadic tribes from Central Asia. Built during the Warring States period, 800 to 500 BC, renewed during the Jinn Dynasty, 221 BC, and subsequent dynasties. Persia and the Near East. History of Iran. Persia, like the Near East, was a place of civilization and settlement of a number of tribes, including Elam and Mede. Since ancient times, there was a relationship between the kingdoms in Persia and the kingdoms in Mesopotamia. In 646 BC, Assyrian king Ashurbanipal destroyed the city of Susa, ending Elamite supremacy on the coast of the Persian Gulf. For more than 150 years, the Assyrian kings of northern Mesopotamia tried to subdue the Medes in western Persia. Europe and the Mediterranean, 800 BC 500 AD, Classical Era. Their civilization reached the Classical Era, 500 BC 500 AD, which includes historical periods when the civilizations of ancient Greece and ancient Rome complemented each other. This era was a time when Greek and Roman societies developed and wielded great influence throughout Europe, North Africa and the Middle East. This era begins with the first records of Greek poetry by Homer, 8th to 7th century BC, and continues with the rise of Christianity and the fall of the Roman Empire, 5th century BC. The Macedonian Empire and the wars of Alexander the Great. Since ancient times, the land around Aegae, the first Macedonian capital, was home to a number of tribes. The First Macedonian Empire was formed around the 8th or early 7th century BC under the Argead dynasty, which according to legend originated in the Peloponnesus city of Argos. The Roman Empire. Ancient Rome is a civilization that started in what is now Italy, in the 8th century BC. According to the historical record A/Urba Condita Libri records history, since the founding of the city, Rome, by Titus Livius, Roman civilization began with the founding of the city of Rome by Romulus and Remus, descendants of Aeneas from Troy, in 753 BC. East World 1000 BC 500 AD. East World refers to the Asian region and the social structures and communities in the region. In this area there has been a development of civilization in the Indus River Valley and the Yellow River, respectively in the Indian subcontinent, now India or most of South Asia, and the Far East, now the territory of China and its surroundings, since more than 3000 BC. Meanwhile, migration still took place in other parts of Asia and older civilizations exerted influence on the surrounding areas. This civilization comes from the civilization in Sunda land, which is rarely mentioned in existing articles. In the period between 1000 BC to 500 AD, in several other Asian regions, such as Sri Lanka, mainland Southeast Asia, the Malay Peninsula, Indonesia, the Philippines, Taiwan, independent cultures emerged and interacted with civilizations that first developed in terms of civilization technology that performed worship mainly to the god Agni Matahari, arts, and beliefs. Several kingdoms arose in Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. At the time of Solomon there was a great civilization in the great land called Sunda land in the period 975 to 935 BC. It was the time of the peak of that civilization, namely civilization led by a queen named Bilqis. That civilization had advanced beyond world civilization in her era. Before Saba there was a civilization that preceded it, namely the Rama Dynasty. This civilization was a civilization that worshipped the sun and had collaborated with the creature Pra-Adam, one of the creatures in the form of a bird, which at the time of Solomon was also devoted to Solomon, the creature of Pra-Adam who collaborated with humans. The remaining creature of Pra-Adam and collaborating with Saba named Garuda, this creature helped the battle of the kingdom before Saba which was recorded in the Ramayana epic in the Bharatayuddha war, and who belonged to Solomon's troops became his army named Hud. Pra-Adam's being in the form of a bird in the kingdom of Saba is recorded in the Ramayana epic. Here is a piece of the quote. Quote from Kakawin Bharatayuddha. The quote below describes the atmosphere of war in Kurukshetra, namely after the Pandavas led by King Drupada arranged a line named Garuda which was great for attacking the Kaurawa troops. Quotations and translations. Rihuusir Pinuja de Sangwar Sir Kabe. K Sana Rahin Commentian died the Drupada Sut. Tika Marapadatinka Buhaning Bay Bisam, Narani Glorierwe Kyati were Kagpati. Having finished being worshipped by all of the knights, then at noon departed the king, the son of Drupada, on arrival ready to organize a very dangerous line. The name of the dangerous line was the famous Garuda, whereas the creature Pra-Adam in the form of a bird is one of them. Let's go to a time where Prophet Adam was not there. What needs to be noted here is that the civilization in the Sunda land is the oldest civilization on Earth before the mass flood on Earth, the flood of Noah, human civilization that lives together with non-human beings. Being pre-Adam. This civilization called Lemuria is a civilization in which non-human beings dominate the Earth, especially those in the Sunda land. Another major landmass is the Sahul Mainland, which is a large landmass that still combines the island of Papua, the islands of Sulawesi and the continent of Australia. This land is the Sahul Mainland which is allowed to dominate human beings, where this theory is known as the Austronesian race theory, which is where the human race first moved to spread across the world. Humans were not created on Earth, but humans were made caliphs on Earth. As a substitute of course someone was replaced. Adam was not the first creature on Earth. Allah did not say to replace the previous humans, but a substitute for creatures on Earth, namely Abul Jan and Banyal Jan. They are inhabitants of the Earth before humans. There were three main people before Adam. Two of them were from the Jinn. When the time of the children of Adam did not exist, the new Earth was inhabited by the first sons who were created from his light. God has made a new creature that is at his side, named Abu Yan or the father of all Jinn. Abu Yan is the beginning of Banyal Yan or the son of the genie, the past until the end of time. Iajal is a group of Jinn who has a physical body and can be injured and bleed. From the three previous groups of people, Earth has experienced a period of chaos, while the other two creatures do not have a body like Ajajal. Banyal Yan was the second occupant before the human nation was born on Earth. When Satan was not born on Earth, the fourth generation of Satan from the Jinn Nation was born. The Banyal Yan kingdom on Earth loves war and massacres one another. Not only that, they also like to slaughter other creatures on Earth. Kingdoms with one another are attacking each other, they want to rule over another kingdom. The Jinn Nation is divided into two groups, namely the first group to become followers of Satan, who has power and strength as well as a very large kingdom. This kingdom is divided into 8 regions on Earth, namely the Southern Kingdom, the Northern Kingdom, the Eastern Kingdom, the Western Kingdom, the Lower Kingdom, or the base of the Earth, because they can penetrate to the ground and even bathed in magma is fine because their bodies are more heat compared to Earth's magma. While the second group broke away from the influence of Satan, they became a weak Jinn group who already had a small and tribal kingdom. They are often colonized by Satan's stronger followers. The war between the two groups raged with each other because of the different beliefs and ideologies of the Jinn until the end of time. Meanwhile, the clever Banyal Yan who had fled was hiding in small islands with tropical climates. As for now, hiding in Indonesian territory because the country has an island. Those who were hiding survived even though they didn't have a kingdom anymore, because their kingdom was completely destroyed. What later in the discussion of this book is this type of genie that collaborates with the Saba civilization in Java. This genie or being that is able to cooperate with humans, can shorten the distance, fly above Earth, enter the Earth, also explore the sky. Humans who can doing this all are humans who are allied with these pre-Adam beings, which in the future this ability can be done by Solomon to conquer the Queen of Saba. Below, the writer will present a scene depicted on the reliefs of Borobudur depicting the ability of human flight, also about Solomon being given the ability to do it. Solomon's journey in the morning is the same as 1 month's journey, also afternoon trips are the same as 1 month's journey. One type or race of non-human beings that the Americans call and give their name as the extraterrestrial gray race, which is the most familiar race of humans on Earth. This is because they have gray skin. In addition, other characteristics of this race are thin, large head, without hair, big black eyes, without eyebrows and eyelashes. That is the image captured by the Americans about non-human beings. These creatures are creatures from outer space. These creatures can enter and exit the Earth quickly as well as in and out of the sun. For those creatures described above, the sun can also function as a doorway to our solar system. These creatures are not as dense as us in the third dimension, their bodies are etheric. Extraterrestrial beings enter and exit the portal of the sun with or without their planes. Their planes are also etheric. This phenomenon is evidenced by the number of planes caught on SOHO cameras around the sun. God Almighty knows what enters the earth, what comes out of it, what comes down from the sky and what rises to it. And He is the most merciful, the most forgiving. They live underground because the surface has been contaminated by the effects of nuclear war with each other. They are creatures of mental, intellectual and technological development. But not spiritually. Therefore it is difficult for them to live in peace and harmony, competing with each other for power. Until a massive war broke out. The big war before the World War occurred was a war like nuclear war. This is recorded in the story of Ramayana and Bharatayuddha. The war was very powerful, and it was true that there were traces of this war on Earth, and it is still there today. As a complement to support about other creatures besides humans and their progress, I will present the writings that I took from the website, about extraterrestrials and their naming their versions in a modern view. Based in the posture and place of origin of the planet Apex, the Greys migrate and occupy various other places in the universe. These creatures are divided into 3 types, namely 1. Derived from the stars Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 in the Reticulum cluster. They were 4.5 feet on average and they had no noses. They have a rough temper. 2. Derived from the star Betelgeuse and Rigel in the Orion cluster. They average 7 to 8 feet tall and they have large noses. Unlike the above types, this type has a more refined and polite temperament. 3. Derived from the Bellatrix star in the Orion cluster. This type is the shortest compared to other types. Only 3.5 feet tall. They also don't have noses. Like their brother from Zeta Reticuli, they also have a rough temperament. Because God is omniscient about these creatures, God sent down a prophet who could overcome and surpass these creatures. God brought a human being named Solomon from a David. And God knows better who is in heaven and on earth. And indeed we have given some of the prophets over to some of the others, and we have given Zabur to David. We notice that of the three types known to Americans, there are similarities as described above about creatures before Adam. From the second type, it is possible that the species inhabited the archipelago in the era of the Sunda land continent, where the islands of Java, Kalimantan, and Sumatra still one unit. This type of creature has a physical form similar to a human, bloodied and fleshy, and has a large body than humans today. The planet where these creatures live is thought to have a thick carbon dioxide atmosphere. It is 7 times Earth's size, orbiting a red dwarf star. This planet is the sister planet of the planet Gliese. It is 20 light-years from the Sun, and you could say this planet is Earth's backyard. According to Sitchin, who has studied Egyptian civilization and culture and tried to interpret some of the texts drawn on the walls of the pyramid, concluded and named it Nibiru. This is the home of a race of aliens called the Anunnaki, which has an orbital period of 3,630 years around the Sun. The name Anunnaki is also written as Anuna, Anunnaku, Anunnaki, and other variations taken from the names of the Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian group of gods. Its physical characteristics are green, blue eyes, blonde hair, fair skin. In this case, the term reptilian shapeshifter appears with the features of reptile-like eyes. From the quote above, we will find out what the real creature is related to later with the civilization of the Sabaean people. We continue about these creatures in modern glasses, which they name and associate these creatures with the name Anunnaki and associate it with Sumerian civilization. It is necessary to note in this book, we will find out that the Egyptian civilization, especially the Sumerians, was a civilization that developed and originated from the Sunda land. The source of this civilization is located in a large plain called the Sundanese land, which Plato calls it Atlantis, a civilization colony of the Saba Empire whose territory is very large, and the civilization of several colonies has developed differently from its source after the center of the Saba Empire sank to the bottom of the sea. Ancient Indonesia, in this case the Saba civilization, already had the knowledge to build pyramids just like ancient Egypt. Pyramid Gunung Padang. The origin of the word is Patahyong in West Java, which is estimated to have started being built 23,000 BC or earlier. This proves that civilization in Java is older than that in Egypt. Russian astronomers named Nibiru as the king of the sun or a great star. Another term for Nibiru is the crossing star. There are also those who call the winged globe or winged star. Because they have advanced technology, the Anunnaki are positioned as gods by the Sumerians. After living on planet Earth for a while, the Anunnaki left, promising to return. Sitchin has deciphered more than 2,000 clay cylinders from the ancient soil that remained in the Persian Gulf. Some of the fragments date back to 4000 BC. One of the fragments is in Germany, indicating that Earth is the 7th planet. The time frame here is 4,000 years before modern astronomy recognized the existence of the planet Pluto. The split conflict and warfare caused Anunnaki to leave planet Earth, leaving humans to fend for themselves, according to Sitchin's version in translating from that. The reason Sitchin was motivated to read cuneiform tablets included the word Nephilim, which is mentioned as a mysterious group in the Old Testament. Nephilim is translated as those who have come down. Sitchin concluded that the placement of the pyramids indicated that they became the direction of the Anunnaki after entering Earth's atmosphere from outer space. Sitchin also confirmed that the early pyramids were not designed by the Egyptians. The Sphinx is known to be 2,000 years older than previously thought. This corroborates Sitchin's findings that another creature designed the Egyptian pyramids. Norte Chico civilization. As far as archaeological research goes, the oldest civilization in the Western Hemisphere in general, and in South America in particular, is the Norte Chico civilization or the Carol Soup civilization, 3200–1800 BC, which leaves archaeological evidence of settlements on the coast of Peru, including central cities in Aspero and Carol. The existence of ancient quipu communication media for Andean people in Carol indicates that the use of this object has been around since time immemorial. The stone pyramids at the site are thought to be contemporary with the Great Pyramids of Giza. Norte Chico has no evidence of building defenses or signs of fighting, unlike other cities in the Andes Mountains. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. As civilization evolved towards more complex forms, so too did religion, and the earliest forms of its variety seem to have started in that period. Natural objects such as the sun, Moon, earth, sky, and sea were often deified. Holy chambers were erected, and developed into the construction of temples, complete with clergy hierarchies and other complex titles. Typical of the Neolithic age was a tendency to worship anthropomorphic gods. Based on excavations at the temple complex of Göbekli Tepe, Fat Belly Hill, in southern Turkey dating back to 11,500 years ago 9500 BC, archaeologists think that the existence of religion preceded the agricultural revolution rather than emerged after it had begun, as is generally assumed. The Egyptians are one of the oldest nations who have a religion and adhere to the polytheistic tradition. The main Egyptian gods included Ra, Osiris, Horus, and Anubis. One of the oldest books of the ancient Egyptians, as well as ancient religious texts that are still preserved is the Pyramid Text, a collection of texts made around 2400–300 BC in the period of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. To be precise, during the reign of Akhenaten, around 1350 BC, the Egyptians adhered to the tradition worship of a god called Aten. That tradition is known as Atonism. Previously Aten was known as an aspect of Ra, the sun god. The oldest records of Aten are found in the Acts of Sinu from the 12th dynasty of Egypt. Aten became a worshipped god. In Mesopotamia, kings were considered to be God's right hand, theocracy, so that they acted as political as well as spiritual leaders. In western Mesopotamia, including Canaan, was the residence of various ancient nations, such as Phoenicians, Hittites, Philistines, Arameans, and Jews. They worshipped various deities, prominent among them, Asherah, Azitareeth, and Baal. That is the interpretation of European writers about other non-human beings who are in outer space and other planets. In the Saba civilization it has been going on for a long time and already before. The Sumerian civilization is a civilization originating from Sunda land which is now named Java. This is supported by the discovery of pyramidal terraces in West Java. The site of the Pundan terraces is larger than Borobudur and after an investigation was found to be longer than the pyramids of the Sumerian civilization in the Middle East. These creatures are in space, looking at the planet Earth and other planets. The planet seems to be in front and behind them and doing damage by always waging war. So that because of their temperament always causes damage, as if they enter the earth it is expected don't come out anymore, and if he goes to the sky it is better that the creature be crushed by being crushed by the lumps from the sky. Then do they not see the heavens and the earth that are in front of them and behind them? If we will surely immerse them in the earth or we will drop on them the lumps from the sky. In fact, in this there really is a sign of God's power for every servant who returns to him. Notice the text of the heavens and the earth that is in front of them and behind them. This text describes the sky and earth that are in front of and behind them. Front and back. This position explains the position of the observer is in the middle, not on earth. Position facing the sky and backwards earth or vice versa, describes the position of the observer in between. In this context, the Saba civilization was able to be in a position not on earth and in the sky, a position in space or space. These creatures collaborated at the time of the Saba civilization, building large-scale sites for the worship of something that is not God, where the Sabaean people worship the sun, Jinn, and also worship who they think is angels. And remember, the day, which at that time, Allah gathered them all. Then Allah said to the angel, "Did they formerly worship you?" The angels replied, "Glory to you. You are our protector." Not them. They have even worshipped the Jinn. Most of them believe in the Jinn. It is hypothesized that the Anunnaki were the gods of the Sumerians, and were considered to be android beings who helped them. At the same time today, UFOs and aliens are thought to bear a resemblance to the description, Anunnaki, as being android beings. The obvious assumption was that they didn't look human, more like the Anunnaki. They seem to be depicted as ancient human figures. The Sumerians described planet Nibiru as a planet very far from Earth, about 3 billion miles, which made it difficult to travel between the two planets. The Sumerians had extraordinary knowledge of the solar system, and considered their gods descending to Earth. They also speak of another being described in the sense of an android being. The Sumerians said that the Anunnaki had helpers, who often performed various tasks with flying saucers, or assisted with other needs. The Sumerians wrote in the cuneiform text on stone what happened during the encounter with the android being. They talked about God's messengers who helped in different ways. It is possible that they were created by the Anunnaki to supervise their experiments on Earth. If the Anunnaki or Sumerian gods are discussed in all ancient manuscripts and even modern Bibles, then what about the reliefs in Borobudur? Of course, the writer has a strong belief that Sumerian civilization is a civilization originating from the Sundanese land of the island of Java today. Let's take a snapshot of the reliefs of Borobudur and the Suku temple. Analysis and descriptions of aliens of people who claim to have been kidnapped. Some of the aliens are described as small gray creatures who have large eyes, round heads, and act almost like a Sumerian android. The characteristics referred to above are illustrated in Borobudur. Please pay attention. NASA has found a large black object in the southern sky. Reactivating telescopes in Argentina and Chile seems to suggest a new source in astronomy. The information would of course be classified as classified, but Sitchin had actually given away all the secrets of his research. Nearly all ancient languages have been translated, and 22 Hebrew letters contain information that produces a light-based system. An understanding of the toroidal force field, the Fibonacci series, fractals and topological vectors, has been expressed in mathematical language. Those who believe in the legends of Atlantis and Lemuria are no longer in fantasy, but believe in another race's attempt to survive on planet Earth. Earth takes 1 year to orbit the Sun, and according to Sitchin, planet Nibiru takes 3,600 years. So, 1 Anunnaki year is equal to 3,600 Earth years. A cosmological question that has not been answered: is it true that Sitchin's belief through his translation and proves that the Anunnaki are ancient aliens of the Sumerians? From the description above, which is taken from the Indonesian Space Research website, we can connect and link it as follows. The Jinn who do not submit to Satan and inhabit the area of the big island of Sunda land are good genies and can relate to humans. These Jinn can deformed. The big bird is Garuda, or the big creature that we often see in Balinese art, in the form of Barong and Riog Ponorogo art, which in Javanese is called Buto. In its development, these creatures reach the Middle East and corners of the world and make a large landmark, among them Pyramida and the sites of large megalithic sites on Earth. And in the explanation below, it is about these Jinn creatures that Prophet Sulaiman can arrive in the land of Java. The story of the Ifrit and the genie named Boda. In Javanese Alak it is called Buto. There is a description on the Borobudur reliefs about a floating figure. Is it the type of creature mentioned above? Then what about the Saba civilization, which can also overcome the distance in a short time? Is it related to the relief images in Borobudur? From several writings taken from various sources about other creatures on Earth, it is clear that we can conclude that these creatures do exist. We can see this from the pictures found on the reliefs in buildings that we can still see today. Pyramid temples and incisions in ancient caves, forms of creatures with human bodies and the heads of animals or other kinds. Whether these creatures have anything to do with the prophets, let's continue to follow this discussion. The names of the prophets found in the Ebla inscription have a very important value because this is the first time these names have been encountered in such an old historical manuscript. This information, which dates back 1,500 years before the Torah, is shocking. The appearance of the name Prophet Ibrahim in the inscription states in writing that the Prophet Abraham and the religion he carried existed before the Torah. Historians have examined the Ebla inscription from this point of view, and the great discoveries about Prophet Abraham and the mission he undertook have become the subject of research in relation to history of religions. David Noel Friedman, an American archaeologist and researcher on the history of religions, reports based on his research the names of prophets such as Abraham and Ishmael in the inscription. Here the author displays the records of the years during which the prophets lived, among which are recorded in the Ebla inscription. 1. Prophet Adam 5872-4942 BC, Data Wiki. 2. Nabi Idris 4533-4188 BC, Babylonian Iraq. 3. Prophet Noah 3993-3043 BC, Southern Modern Iraq. 4. Prophet Hud 2450-2320 BC, East Hadramaut, Yemen. 5. Prophet Pius 2150-2080 BC, Hijaz and Sham. 6. Prophet Ibrahim 1997-1822 BC, Iraq. 7. Prophet Ismail 1911–1779 BC, Kabila Yemen, Mecca. 8. Prophet Lud 1950–1870 BC, Saddam, Syria, Palestine. 9. Prophet Ishaq 1761–1638 BC, Al-Khalil, Palestine. 10. The Prophet Jacob 1837–1690 BC, the children of Israel in Sham. 11. Prophet Joseph 1745–1635 BC, Egypt. 12. Prophet Shuaib 1600–1500 BC, Madian. 13. Prophet Job 1540–1420 BC, Haran, Sham. 14. Prophet Zulkifli 1500–1425 BC, Damascus. 15. Prophet Musa 1527–1408 BC, modern Jordan. 16. Pabi Aaron 1531–1408 BC, Sina, Egypt. 17. Pabi David 1010–970 BC, Israel. 18. Nabi Solomon 975–935 BC, Baitul Maqdis, Palestine. 19. Pabi Ilyas 910–850 BC, Israel, Sham. 20. Nabi Ilyasa 885–795 BC, Israel, Syria, Palestine. 21. Nabi Yunus 827–50 BC, Iraq. 22. Nabi Zechariah 120 BC, Palestine. 23. Nabi Yahya 31–1 BC, Israel, Palestine. 24. Nabi Isa 132 BC, Israel, Palestine. 25. Nabi Muhammad saw the 20th of April 570 571 the 8th of June 632 Arabic. Borobudur book is not a temple. Part 1 continues on to Part 2. Santo Saba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on subjective academic studies and studies, this needs to be re-examined by experts in their fields. In an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÉSIARYÄ. By Santo Saba. Exploration and Research. Complete info. Waatsap to +62813 2132 9787.